The Galactic Council chamber had been built to intimidate. Its ceiling vanished into artificial night, threaded with slow-moving constellations meant to remind visitors of how small they were. Stone seats carved from the cores of dead planets rose in concentric circles, each occupied by a representative of a civilization older than human history. This was where species were judged, categorized, and, when necessary, contained. Commander Elias Rourke stood alone at the center. He wore no ceremonial armor, no radiant insignia. Just a dark uniform, unadorned except for a small emblem over his chest. Earth's mark, simple and restrained. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. To the council, that composure read not as discipline, but ignorance. They mistook silence for weakness. The presiding counselor, an ancient being whose species had mastered interstellar travel before humans had learned to write, leaned forward. His voice carried without amplification, resonating through the chamber like grinding stone. "Humanity," he said, drawing out the word as though tasting something unpleasant. "A species defined by internal conflict. You war against yourselves more than against any external threat." Soft ripples of amusement passed through the chamber. Some counselors flexed mandibles. Others emitted low-frequency clicks of agreement. Rourke did not react. Another counselor spoke, tall and sharp-featured, his species renowned for its military conquests. "We have reviewed your history extensively. Nuclear brinkmanship, environmental collapse, billions lost to wars over ideology and borders. You are energetic, but energy without control is chaos." Rourke lifted his gaze, meeting the speaker's eyes. "And yet," he said calmly, "we're still here." That earned him laughter. The sound echoed, layered and alien, reverberating against the stone. The council did not laugh often. When they did, it was usually at the moment a species realized it had no leverage left. "You are here," the presiding counselor replied, "because we allow it. Humanity has reached the threshold of relevance, not dominance. Your expansion rate is concerning. Your technology, while innovative, lacks refinement. We will not permit instability to spread beyond your system." A projection ignited above the chamber floor. Earth appeared, rotating slowly. Lines of influence spread outward like a cage. "The council has voted," the counselor continued. "Your species will be placed under protective oversight. Limited expansion. Mandatory observation. Compliance is not optional." Rourke's jaw tightened, just enough to be noticeable. "Protection," he repeated. "From what?" "From yourselves," came the answer. For the first time since entering the chamber, Rourke shifted his stance. He took a single step forward, boots striking the stone with a sharp, deliberate sound that cut through the murmurs. "You've been watching us," he said. "You've seen our worst moments, but you've ignored why we survived them." The military counselor scoffed. "Survival by chance does not equate to strength." "No," Rourke agreed. "Survival by adaptation does." The chamber quieted slightly, curiosity flickering among the arrogance. Rourke continued, his voice even, controlled. "You see our wars and assume we're reckless. You see our emotions and assume we're undisciplined. What you missed is that every conflict taught us restraint. Every near extinction taught us preparation." The presiding counselor's eyes narrowed. "This is irrelevant. The decision is final." Rourke held his gaze. "Then hear this before you finalize it." A few counselors shifted, amused by the defiance of a species they had already dismissed. "Humanity does not seek dominion," Rourke said. "We don't conquer for sport. We don't erase cultures for convenience. But we do respond to threats." The laughter returned, sharper this time. "A threat?" the military counselor asked. "You?" Rourke didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. That, more than anger, unsettled a few of them. "You are not wrong about one thing," he said. "We fight each other. We always have. That's why you should have paid closer attention to what happens when we stop." Silence crept back into the chamber, thin but present. The presiding counselor waved a hand dismissively. "Enough. Your resistance is noted and denied. You will return to your world and comply." Any attempt to violate Council mandate will be met with corrective action. Rourke inclined his head, a gesture that could have been interpreted as respect. It was not. Understood, he said. He turned and began walking toward the exit platform. Behind him, the Council resumed its low conversation, already shifting attention to other matters. Humanity, to them, was resolved, another volatile species safely caged before it could become inconvenient. As Rourke stepped onto the transport field, his expression changed. The calm did not break, but it hardened, like steel settling into its final shape. A private channel opened in his retinal display, encrypted beyond anything the Council could perceive. A single recipient. A single priority code. Earth Command acknowledged instantly. Rourke did not waste words. Council vote confirmed, he said. Containment order issued. There was no panic on the other end. No surprise. Understood, came the reply, steady and male, carrying the weight of readiness. Recommendations. Rourke looked back once at the vast chamber, at the ancient beings who believed history belonged to them alone. Proceed to Phase 1, he said. They think we're still arguing with ourselves. The transport field activated, lifting him away as the stars above the chamber continued their slow, indifferent motion. On Earth, long-buried systems began to wake. The sun had barely risen over Earth when Admiral Marcus Hale stood on the observation deck of the Sol Fleet Command Station, his eyes fixed on the silent expanse beyond the atmosphere. The station floated like a sentinel above the blue and green orb, its hull bristling with weaponry that even the most advanced alien scanners would struggle to detect. Hale's hands rested on the rail, fingers tapping lightly, a rhythmic signal of thought. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries. The Council thought they were fragile, chaotic, bound to self-destruction. They had no idea what lay beneath the surface. Behind Hale, the station hummed with life. Engineers and tacticians moved in synchronized precision, their steps and commands a ballet of efficiency that belied the apparent chaos below on the planet's surface. The human fleet was not just prepared. It had been waiting. Generations of planning, of silent research, of hidden construction, had brought them to this moment. Admiral, a voice called. Hale turned to see Dr. Victor Kane, the station's chief weapons architect, approaching with a data slate under his arm. Kane's thin frame and sharp features betrayed his genius, and his eyes burned with the fervor of someone who had devoted decades to humanity's survival. The fleet is ready. Phase 1 deployment can commence on your order. Hale nodded, his gaze returning to the void. Good. Status on the asteroid carriers. They've been launched from their hidden orbits. Estimated rendezvous with the outer fleet in less than 12 hours. Dark matter propulsion is performing ahead of projections. Communications are secured through quantum channels. Not a Council sensor can detect a thing. Kane's words were precise, each syllable carrying the weight of countless hours of calculation and testing. Hale allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. They still believe we are disorganized, that our internal conflicts define us. Let them keep thinking it. It will make their shock complete. The Council had dismissed humanity as emotional, short-sighted, reckless. They had counted every failure as a sign of weakness, never seeing the method in the madness, the discipline in the chaos. Hale knew better. He had seen the way humans adapted, how they learned from disaster and hardship, turning each setback into preparation for the next. He activated a holographic projection above the deck. The Sol system appeared, surrounded by countless alien fleets in their simulations, their movements cautious, calculated. Hale traced the projected paths with a gloved finger. They assume standard formations, that they can contain us with intimidation and predictable tactics. But human strategy is never predictable. It adapts, evolves, and overwhelms before they even recognize the threat. Kane leaned closer, pointing at the hologram. Phase 1 simulations suggest over 80% success against any single Council fleet dispatched. Multi-flank scenarios increase effectiveness exponentially. If they strike first, we adapt. If they hesitate, we strike. Either way, the outcome favors us. Hale's voice was low, almost contemplative. Humanity does not seek war. But when cornered, we act decisively. And we do not forgive oversight. The Council has misjudged us for too long. Beyond the projection, the observation deck's windows reflected the faces of the station's crew. Young men and seasoned veterans alike, everyone trained in advanced tactics, weaponry, and fleet operations. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were architects of survival, scholars of combat, and pioneers of technology the Council could barely comprehend. Hale walked toward the bridge, the hum of the station's engines vibrating beneath his boots. Each step resonated with purpose. On the bridge, fleet captains awaited him, their uniforms dark, insignia subtle, but eyes sharp. This was the human advantage, a combination of discipline, intellect, and instinct honed over centuries. Admiral Hale, Captain Ryland Voss spoke, his voice steady. Voss had commanded multiple fleet engagements in Earth's defense exercises, and his reputation for quick, adaptive thinking had earned him a place at the heart of this operation. All vessels report combat readiness. Quantum comms secure. Weapon systems operational. Awaiting your command. Hale nodded. Engage readiness protocols. Maintain radio silence. Deploy scouts to outer edges of known Council positions. No aggressive moves yet. Let them watch and underestimate. Let them think the humans are still arguing among themselves. A murmur of approval swept through the bridge. Discipline was ingrained, but pride was earned. Every man here understood the stakes. Humanity's survival was not guaranteed by strength alone. It was guaranteed by strategy, unity, and the unbreakable will of those willing to act when others hesitated. Kane stepped to Hale's side once more. Weapons calibration complete. Asteroid-forged projectiles, gravimetric disruptors, and dark matter torpedoes are all synchronized with Fleet Command. The simulations are accurate to within 1/100%. The first strike will be surgical, precise, and undeniable. Hale studied the young architect's determined face. Good. Precision saves lives. We do not seek to kill for vengeance, but we will not tolerate provocation. We strike only to neutralize the threat, and to remind the galaxy that humanity is not fragile. For a moment, silence fell over the bridge. The hum of the station was the only sound, a quiet affirmation of latent power. Then Hale spoke again, his voice rising just enough to command attention. Prepare to execute Phase 1. Let the Council think we are weak. Let them continue their laughter. When the time comes, we will show them the cost of misjudging an underestimated species. Outside, the vastness of space seemed to pulse with anticipation. Hidden fleets began their maneuvers, and dormant weapon systems came alive with the subtle hiss of energy channels engaging. Humanity had waited long enough in the shadows, and now the moment to step into the light and rewrite the galaxy's assumptions had arrived. Hale allowed himself a brief glance back at the planet below. Cities teemed with life, unaware of the silent fleets emerging in orbit. Generations of planning, invention, and training had led to this point. The galaxy believed Earth's inhabitants were divided, emotional, weak. They were about to be corrected. A single word echoed in Hale's mind, sent silently to every fleet command. Engage. Every vessel, every system, every crew member understood. They moved as one, a singular will masked in millions of hands and minds. The Council had dismissed humanity as primitive, and soon, the galaxy would learn that humans were anything but predictable. Above, in the void, the first signs of movement flickered as hidden fleets emerged from concealment, a silent tide poised to sweep across the stars. Humanity's war had not begun with anger or revenge. It began with certainty. The countdown to the Council's reckoning had started. The first contact was silence. Not the polite caution of diplomacy, nor the measured signals of reconnaissance, but the absence of all warning. Above the Council's capital world, thousands of human vessels emerged from hidden vantage points, dark shapes streaking through space with uncanny precision. Alien sensors, trained to detect every anomaly, flickered with confusion. Then, with incomprehensible speed, humanity struck. Admiral Marcus Hale stood on the command deck of the flagship Indomitable, his eyes scanning live feeds from every engagement zone. The Council fleets had assumed superiority, relying on predictable formations and overconfidence. They had not anticipated humanity's simultaneous emergence at multiple fronts, nor the adaptive weapon systems capable of recalibrating mid-battle. The first wave of projectiles tore through conventional shields, passing harmlessly through defenses that had never encountered such technology. Target Fleet Delta 9, Hale commanded, voice calm and deliberate. Engage gravimetric disruptors at 62% output. Torpedoes only as needed. Confirmed, replied Captain Rylan Voss. His hands moved over the console in a precise rhythm, orchestrating hundreds of vessels in synchrony. The human fleet's efficiency was breathtaking, every maneuver anticipatory, every strike a lesson in tactical perfection. Below, the Council's war chambers erupted in panic. Male commanders barked orders into malfunctioning comm channels, their once commanding voices strained with disbelief. One by one, fleets that had been considered untouchable fell silent, their navigation arrays overloaded by human adaptability. Ships spun helplessly in the void, disarmed by weapons that anticipated movement before it happened. Commander Elias Rourke, observing the chaos from an orbital relay, allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. He had been the lone human in the chamber of arrogance, the single voice dismissed as bluff. Now, the galaxy understood the cost of that dismissal. Report, Rourke said, his tone measured. Dr. Victor Kane appeared beside him on the relay deck, tablet in hand. Outer Council fleet neutralized. Minimal losses on our side. Adaptive targeting exceeded simulations. The element of surprise has compounded effectiveness tenfold. Hale's voice echoed through secure channels to Rourke. Proceed with secondary strikes. Disable command nodes. Leave the crews alive if possible. We demonstrate capability, not cruelty. The Council's fleets attempted to regroup. Male admirals issued counterorders, but their strategies were obsolete before executed. Human ships split, rejoined, and struck from unexpected vectors. Long-range disruptors tore through capital-class vessels while swarm drones disabled support crafts. Alien formations crumbled under coordinated precision. A holographic display illuminated Hale's deck. Projected across the stars were the movements of every human vessel, tracking Council positions and casualties in real time. It was not chaos, it was symphony. Every strike had purpose. Every pause calculated. Every maneuver accounted for contingencies the Council had not even imagined. Admiral, Kane said, they're attempting electronic countermeasures. Standard protocols will fail. Hale's gaze hardened. Then adapt. As we always do. Every human vessel immediately rerouted power, reprogramming targeting arrays in milliseconds. Weapons recalibrated mid-flight. Communication jammers became conduits for deception. Alien fleets, expecting routine, were confronted by evolution in real time. Every strike that should have failed succeeded. Every defensive measure became a trap. In the Council's capital, male delegates watched helplessly as orbital defenses fell and critical infrastructure was neutralized. Their systems, designed to enforce centuries of dominance, were now tools of their own obsolescence. Panic erupted, but the humans offered no pause. They were precise, deliberate, and unyielding. Broadcast to all remaining fleets, Hale ordered, voice steady. Display losses, show our coordination. Let them understand the cost of misjudgment. Moments later, Council ships received visual confirmation of every lost vessel. The display was clinical, without flair, yet profoundly unsettling. Alien crews, accustomed to hierarchical authority, were confronted with the stark efficiency of human strategy. The galaxy had witnessed humans as they were rarely seen, unified, disciplined, and unstoppable when cornered. Rourke's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the battlefield through a relay feed. They still underestimate us. Even now, some believe victory is possible. Hale's voice cut through the silence of anticipation. Then remind them. Concentrate strike on the central command hub. Disable it without annihilation. We are not conquerors. We are correction. The central hub trembled under the assault of gravimetric torpedoes. Energy shields shimmered, overloaded, and then dissipated. Command arrays sparked and died. The council chamber, once a symbol of invulnerability, went dark. Silence replaced the arrogance that had filled it for millennia. In the aftermath, human ships maintained formation above the capital. There was no celebration, only observation. Every vessel remained alert, ready for the unforeseen. Humanity had delivered a lesson, but they did not revel in devastation. This was not about revenge. It was about understanding, about reshaping assumptions that had endangered an entire species. Rourke allowed a moment of reflection. He activated a secure channel to Hale. Phase 3 preparations are unnecessary. The point has been made. Hale's response was concise.
Acknowledged.
Hold positions. Await further developments. We do not overreach. For the first time, the male representatives of the council saw the human spirit not as chaotic or fragile, but as formidable. A species that had been written off as primitive now stood as a measured storm above their once invincible civilization. Fear, respect, and awe flickered in equal measure across their faces. Tell me, Rourke said quietly to himself, who will now dare to mock humanity? The galaxy had gone silent. For the first time, centuries of arrogance met the precision and resilience of human strategy. The message was unambiguous. Humanity was neither weak nor naive, and the cost of misjudging them would echo through every star system. Above the Council's capital, the human fleet remained vigilant. The battle had been decisive, but it was only a prelude. The galaxy now knew the truth, and the Council would be forced to reckon with it. Humanity had not just fought, they had corrected the misconception of an entire galaxy. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the human fleet hovered in quiet dominance, a sentinel and a warning. The Council's arrogance had been shattered, their fleets crippled, and yet humanity offered no insult, no tyranny. They had simply acted. And in that stillness, one fact became undeniable. The underestimated had emerged as the inevitable. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The first strikes were over, but the lesson had only begun. The council chamber lay in ruins, yet silence hung heavier than destruction. Lights flickered, projecting fractured images of a civilization once certain of its dominance. Admiral Marcus Hale's fleet hovered above the world, engines idling in a controlled hum, a tangible reminder of what humanity could achieve. Below, the few surviving counselors gathered, their expressions unreadable beneath layers of shock, shame, and disbelief. Commander Elias Rourke descended onto the planet's surface, escorted by a contingent of human marines. Each step he took echoed across the marble floors of the Council's capital, deliberate, measured, a rhythm of authority unchallenged. The Council had expected negotiation, perhaps defiance. They had not expected calm, and they had not expected restraint. Rourke faced the remaining counselors, each male, each representing centuries of interstellar power. His eyes scanned the assembly, unflinching, absorbing their fear and incredulity. "You assumed weakness," he said. "You laughed at us, dismissed us, and sought to contain what you could not comprehend." A counselor finally spoke, his voice wavering. "Humanity, why spare us? We were prepared to destroy you, to erase your influence entirely." Hale's voice joined Rourke's, transmitted across secure channels to the chamber. "Because we do not conquer for pride or amusement. Humanity does not act out of spite. We fight when cornered. We respond when threatened. But we do not annihilate without cause." Rourke allowed a moment's pause, letting the weight of their silence fill the room. Then he continued, "You see us as impulsive, emotional, chaotic, but you've learned that we are disciplined, coordinated, and adaptive. We do not forgive ignorance. And yet, we act with clarity, even mercy, when possible." The counselors' eyes flicked nervously to one another, the arrogance of millennia replaced by uncertainty. They had studied humanity, but they had misread it. They had catalogued wars, environmental collapses, and social strife, never seeing that these trials forged discipline, resilience, and ingenuity. Hale's fleet maintained orbital dominance, a silent testament to human capability. Your fleets are crippled, he continued. Your command systems disabled. Your arrogance shattered. And yet, you are alive to witness it. Consider this a lesson, not a punishment. Rourke stepped closer, the soft click of his boots emphasizing his words. Earth seeks sovereignty, not conquest. Respect for our borders is not negotiation, it is recognition of fact. Humanity is united in a way few species can imagine. We are vigilant, prepared, and capable of unimaginable defense. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. A counselor finally whispered, almost to himself, "We have underestimated them." Rourke's lips curved subtly. "Then you have learned. And perhaps, in learning, you will survive better than you might have otherwise." The surviving counselors nodded slowly. No agreements were signed, no treaties imposed by force. Instead, understanding passed silently between observer and observed. Humanity had made its point with precision, restraint, and inevitability. Hale activated a secure channel to Rourke on the surface. Prepare the fleet for withdrawal. Maintain positions long enough to ensure compliance. Let the galaxy observe, not out of threat, but as proof of capability. Rourke acknowledged, then addressed the counselors once more. Consider this your warning. The galaxy may test us, provoke us, or attempt to deceive us again. Humanity will respond as we have today. Not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Survival is not optional. The counselors, humbled yet intact, absorbed the gravity of his words. They had expected obliteration, humiliation, or perhaps formal surrender. Instead, they received a measured statement of fact, a mirror held to their misjudgment. Humanity was no longer a primitive species to be catalogued. It was a power whose methods and resolve were unmatched in scope and clarity. Hale's voice broke the tense silence one final time. We depart as observers, not conquerors. Our fleets will remain on alert, but we will not occupy. Humanity does not act out of arrogance, but neither will it tolerate provocation. Remember this lesson well. Rourke turned to leave, pausing to glance back at the counselors. Teach your successors carefully, he said. For underestimating humanity once is forgivable. Underestimating us twice will not be. The human fleet lifted from orbit in perfect formation, engines glowing softly against the darkness of space. Below, the Council's planet remained intact, yet every stone, every hull, had felt the presence of a species that could no longer be dismissed. They were alive but changed. Fear, respect, and understanding had replaced their arrogance. On Earth, the news of the engagement never needed broadcast. Humanity had fought not for glory or conquest, but to assert its place in the galaxy. Hale and Rourke returned to command posts aboard orbiting stations, watching as fleets repositioned, systems recalibrated, and the galaxy slowly absorbed the shock of what had transpired. The Council will think twice, Kane said quietly beside Hale, before judging a species again. Hale nodded, eyes distant. And if they do not, humanity will act again. Not for revenge, not for expansion, but for survival. Always for survival. Rourke stood at a viewport, gazing at the stars stretching infinitely beyond Earth. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth. Humans were not fragile, not predictable, and not to be underestimated. In the quiet that followed, one reality crystallized above all else. The underestimated had emerged, disciplined, united, and unstoppable when tested. Earth returned to peace, but the galaxy would not forget. Humanity's presence now carried a weight that demanded caution, respect, and recognition. The stars shimmered above, indifferent yet bearing witness. In every silent system, in every distant outpost, one lesson echoed: the underestimated can become inevitable. And humanity, as always, would be ready.